Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ask Microsoft Anything Windows Hotpatch Edition. I'm Naveen Gaisa, Principal PM in the Windows Servicing and Delivery team here at Microsoft. Super excited to be your host today. Joining me are my amazing teammates, David, Vishal, and Surabi. We'll be diving into all things Windows Hotpatch as part of Autopatch, answering your questions, discussing the details, and helping you all understand how this capability can help make your life easier. All right, before we get started, let me hand over to David for a quick intro, and then we'll hear from Vishal and Surabi. David, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Naveen. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us. My name is David Callaghan. I'm a Principal Product Manager for Hotpatching, specifically focusing on Windows 2411 H2 clients. And can't wait to hear the questions this morning. Handing off to Vishal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vishal. I'm a Principal Product Manager with the Hotpatching, working on this tech for a few years now, and mostly focused on the server piece of Hotpatching, both on the cloud and on-prem. Handing it over to Surbi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Surabhi Kalla, and I'm a product manager with the Autopatch team. So I manage updates for commercial ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you, team. All right, let's jump in. As some of you know, we announced the public preview of Hotpatch for Windows 11 Enterprise at Ignite. Just before that, we also announced Hotpatch for Windows Server 25 ARC-enabled servers. So for those of you who might be new to Hotpatch, here's the magic in a nutshell. It lets you install Windows security updates without restarting your device. No interruptions and no downtime. This is going to make a massive impact on how quickly and seamlessly devices stay secure and compliant. All right, we know you've got questions, lots of them, and we're here with answers. So we'll do our best to try and answer as much as we possibly can. So let's get started here. Our first question. Today is the first Patch Tuesday after hot patching is available. As per the documentation, it says baseline patch available only first month of every quarter. Does this mean we should wait for January month to come to test hot patch functionality? Great question. Thanks for asking this. David, would you like to take this one?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you, Naveen. So one thing I want to start out with is hot patching, as we mentioned, is available today. And the important understanding in the question being asked is, when is the baseline month for this month's Patch Tuesday, or even last month's Patch Tuesday at Ignite? And the answer to that was the October Patch Tuesday. So Windows 11 24H2 released in October. So if you can put your machine on the October baseline, the default OS, you could do that in a couple different ways. I'll assume we have a test machine that we're working with. So you could uninstall what we call the standard update. So if you took last month's Patch Tuesday update and got all the features and security fixes, or even this month's 12B, what we call the December update, you can uninstall them both and you will be on the correct baseline. That machine, then you could opt into hot patching with your auto patch policy and install both the 11 and the 12B hot patch updates. So that's one way you can test with it today. And then your other insight in the question is correct, that if you did nothing other than enroll a eligible device into a hot patch policy, you will receive the January baseline, and your next hot patch update will be in February, 2B and 3B, February and March.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. All right, our next question from the tech community is hot patching available for GCC? Surabi, would you like to take this one?
I can take that one. So at this point in time, for cloud native update management, GCC is currently not supported fully, but that's something that's on our roadmap. We're working through certain certifications that are essential for that. So GCC is actually your government cloud. What does it really stand for? But it's like your government cloud infrastructure. So for those, we need very, very different privacy policies that need to be set up. There's a lot of certification that needs to go behind it, which is related to your federal certification policies. And that work is basically being done and investigated at this point in time. We don't have any specific dates, but we do understand the need of expanding our feature set to GCC, and definitely working towards it.
Thank you, Surabi. And yes, GCC is government community cloud. Thank you. All right, let's move on to our next question on tech community. Hot patching is a phenomenal UX advancement, and kudos to the team on their accomplishment. If feasible, I would love to see this capability come for drivers in addition to quality updates. Absolutely, we would all love that as well. But David, do you want
Sure.
to give this
Sure.
one a shot? Yeah.
I can definitely touch on this. So one of the requirements to build a hot patch is it's only able to be built using Microsoft internal build tools. So what that implies is that Microsoft has the source code and the ability to build the security patches for these drivers. So if a driver was built by Microsoft, it is potentially hot patchable. Okay. For example, we patch the kernel and other system components. So it's not outside the bound of possibility. But I think one of the intents behind the question here may be third-party drivers and things like that. And we understand the question, and we'll look into it for the future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David. All right. Our next question on tech community is, this is a completely different product, or is it part of Windows Autopatch, which is a feature in Intune? If it's a different product as a whole, then how does it compete with Windows Autopatch, like pros and cons? Great question. And Surabi, I think you have a good answer as well.
So this is basically, the way I would like you to think through this is, think of it like another content. So Autopatch really helps you to do update management of different content types in your organization, and Hotpatch is your reboot-less content for your security B releases. So then it's not a product. It's basically a very rich content that is being offered through your Autopatch update management solution. So I hope that really answers the question.
Absolutely. Thank you, Surabi. And I just want to add to that Hotpatch and Autopatch together are a really good combination, right? They just come together, and the way we designed it is for Autopatch to be your best experience of Hotpatch, right? So we highly encourage everyone to actually, use Hotpatch as part of Autopatch. They do complement each other, like Surabi has just outlined. Great question. Thank you so much. All right, question on X. So we can manage Hotpatch for Windows client in Intune Autopatch, but where do we configure it for server? Same place? Vishal, our server expert.
That's an interesting question. So for server, we actually have two different ways you can actually do it. One is you can use your Azure Update Manager to manage your updates on your machines, whether it's on the cloud or if you have an Azure Arc connected machine on-prem, you can definitely use your Azure Update Manager. But for on-prem, which is your Azure Arc connected scenarios, you could also leverage your third-party tools that you currently use to leverage to install hot patches on your servers. And so there are APIs that the third-party tools can actually call, and they can leverage the existing APIs to go update your machines with hot patches. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Vishal. All right. Next question on tech community. When will hot patches be available in the WSUS catalog? Well, for now, there are no plans to include them in WSUS catalog, but we would love to hear more from you on why you think this is a good idea, and what are your use cases? We are in public preview. We're collecting customer feedback, and these are exactly the things that we would love to hear from our customers. Is it better to put it on WSUS, to keep it cloud connected? All of that. This is all really, really good feedback. If anyone wants to add anything to this, David, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, I'd love to hear more about the question in the comments. When someone asks about WSUS, you're probably talking about maybe an offline configuration mode or things like that. So just for basics, Autopatch is a cloud managed device solution. So the devices get configured by the Autopatch policy to opt in, and then they scan the Windows Update Cloud and are offered the Hotpatch if they're eligible. And there's some prerequisites. For example, you have to have virtualization-based security turned on. If you don't have that turned on, your update policy will have Hotpatch enabled, but the device will scan the cloud and still be offered the standard update. So currently, Hotpatch is eligible for E3, which is what we call the enterprise E3 and E5 entitlements, or it's not really a SKU, it's an entitlement, as well as the frontline worker, which would be E3 or F3 and F5. And also we're looking at EDU, which you would think it would be E, but it's not. It's A3 and A5. So when we say A3 and A5, we're talking about EDU. So those are the primary scenarios. And the real benefit of Autopatch really goes back to the opening question. What's the baseline month this month? How do I know if I should be offering Hotpatch or the standard update, or what's the deal? And so Autopatch out the gate makes that really simple for users. You simply create a new Autopatch policy, opt into Hotpatch for eligible devices, put your Windows 24 H2 devices in there, the new Windows 11 24 H2, update existing, turn on VBS, and you're good to go. Thanks.
Yeah, as mentioned, they are really good together, right? That's the whole idea. Autopatch and Hotpatch really go hand in hand, and they work very well together.
And so if there are other scenarios for like offline or disconnected, what are you trying to solve with WSUS and things like that? If I'm not mistaken, is it sort of on about a 10-year end of life? Is that correct? If I remember right, the product and things. So
there's a deprecation path for WSUS right now, but we definitely love to hear from our customers if this is an important area that they would like us to invest or even continue to support.
Exactly, because we never want to have a gap in the solution. So if WSUS is sort of on its way down and we have other offerings, cloud offering, other management, let's hear your scenarios and make sure that the products always fit all your needs. Thank you.
Awesome. Great question. Thank you so much. All right. Next question on tech community. Will .NET Framework cumulative updates also be Hotpatch enabled? If not, it's likely that clients will still require a monthly reboot for these specific update types. I know we're all eager to answer this one. Let me give it a shot, David, and then I'll ask you to add on. So just to answer the first part of the questions, will .NET Framework cumulative updates also be Hotpatch enabled? The answer is, for now, no, they will not. They will not be Hotpatch enabled. However, .NET have been aligning their security updates with our baseline month. Right, so they are releasing, if you go back even this entire last year and look at their security updates, they have been released on baseline months where you would have to reboot for a Windows security update anyway. And if you look at the in-between updates, they are non-security. They are trying their best to align with us. So you will not have to reboot your device for a .NET update if you're only taking security updates, right? And the other thing that I would like to add is that look at it this way, right? You are getting secure, you are getting compliant as soon as possible from a Windows perspective, from a Windows security updates perspective. You're getting secure as soon as possible. You need to take any other updates that require a reboot. You can take your time doing that, right? And in the meanwhile, you're compliant, you're not flagged, you're secure. So that's another really big advantage, is patch velocity for Hotpatch. David, would you like to add anything, or Vishal?
Sure. Couple points on this. Thank you, Naveen. That was great setup on that too. So the key point I want to mention is if you think about update deployment. So the classic example yesterday was Patch Tuesday, right? And so teams around the world are ingesting this package and validating it and about to deploy it across the enterprise, right? So there's a couple days delay. And depending on your default settings, you might have a 2-day deferral, which means don't deploy patches while my workers are working between 9 and 5. So if a machine's available outside those working hours and those are your default settings, then that patch may not be deployed if the user closes the laptop lid, between 9 and 5, that update won't be installed. So within 2 days, the hot patches will be installed just like your standard update. We respect the same policies. But the real acceleration comes in what we call the grace period, the time between when, as an IT admin, you configure the patch to install and you force the restart. And so when I look at internal data, for example, we released yesterday, and I could say, maybe an average of about 50% of devices in a certain class won't have restarted yet because they're still in that 3-day grace period. So when you saw Pavan and Ignite talk about hot patching being 60% faster and things like that, we're saving those 3 days where the patch is installed, the machine is not secured because it hasn't forced a restart. And that all goes away. So you get that faster patch velocity. That's really, I think, one of the key benefits. It's easy to say, hey, no reboots ever or things like that. That's not the real value proposition right now with customers, is that we are securing your machine faster. And there's no way around it. You just can't beat that the updates installed directly into memory and the machine's immediately patched.
Awesome. Thank you, David. All right, moving on to the next question on tech community. For hot patch policies to apply, does the targeted Windows 11 24H2 group should be excluded from regular WOOF-B update rings? My assumption is that the PC should not be excluded from WOOF-B update rings to apply hot patch policies. For example, today we received pending reboot for December 24 security patch from regular WOOF-B update rings. Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, I can
Sarah,
take that.
do you want to take that? Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
So basically, you don't need to exclude any of the devices that you currently have set up as part of your update rings. You can keep your schedule for deploying the update, any quality update, feature update as part of the update ring policy. Nothing needs to be changed there. In addition to that, you would just need to go ahead in Autopatch under the devices Windows Update Blade and just create a new quality update policy. That's a new profile for quality updates that we've created in addition to expedited policies. Just go ahead and create a new policy, add all your devices into that pool, and then that's it. So the cloud service would make sure that we honor your deferral and the deadlines that you've set into place there while we're offering you hot patch updates. And the devices that are not eligible but belong to those, the quality update policy will be offered the regular traditional cumulative update for security updates. So the service in the backend will take care of that. You're not required to alter any of your update ring setup that you already have in place for your organization.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarabi. All right. The next question is for you, David. What are the prerequisites for enabling hot patching for Windows Server and for client?
Cool. Great question. Thank you. Appreciate this one. So the universal prerequisite, whether you're talking about Windows Client or Windows Server, is virtualization-based security. Okay. This, coincidence or not by coincidence, is on by default for Server 2025 and Windows 24 H2 devices, brand new devices. So if you buy a brand new device, it comes as the out-of-the-box hardware requirement settings. It has additional security as well as supports the necessary operating system features to make hot patching work. If you're upgrading a Windows 10 device or a Windows 23 H2 device, we respect the existing VBS setting. So what you would have to do is go in manually. There's group policies and other ways to set VBS, but you need to turn that on. One way you can find out is if you go to System Information, from the Start menu, run System Information, scroll down to the very bottom. In that list of services and features about your computer, you'll see if VBS is running or not. So that's one that you have to have on for everything. Okay. The next one I want to talk about briefly is what we call the compiled hybrid portable execution file format binaries, which are also known by the acronym CHIPY. And so this, what I'm about to say, only applies to the ARM64 devices. Hot patching on client is supported by both x86, which includes the AMD 64 and Intel or x64 processors. But there's also, like the new Copilot PCs and others are available with the ARM64 CPU. And so when you're doing hot patching on ARM64, you have to disable the use of chippy binaries. This month's KB, the 12B release, contains hot patched files that are impacted by this setting. And so you'll see in the release notes for the KB, it talks about a prerequisite, and it'll tell you the registry key that must be disabled and the computer must be restarted for this to take effect. This is kind of like VBS. You have to set this operating system one time, and then the machine's good to go towards the future. So please, if you're using ARM, pay attention to this, especially between now and if you're just opting in and you're going to get a restart with 1B in January and others, get that setting included to disable Chippy for your ARM devices. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add, thanks, David. I would like to add a little bit more and give a little more details on the server side. So for server, if you're looking at leveraging hot patching on Azure for Azure VMs, we already have Azure Edition that is enabled for hot patching whenever you provision your VMs. Now, these VMs specifically are Gen 2 VMs, exactly for the reason that David said that, hey, the prerequisite is you need to have virtualization-based security to be turned on. And that is available only on a Gen 2 VM. And because Azure VMs, it's available only on Azure Edition, by default, these are only Gen 2 VMs, right? That's the requirement that you actually need to have when you're looking at Azure VMs. You need to have an Azure Edition image, and it has to be on Gen 2. The other requirement is like if you have an Azure Arc connected machine, right, on-prem or on other clouds, then the same thing applies, that your hardware should be capable of turning on VBS and be able to run VBS, right? That is a prerequisite, right? There are some hardware requirements that you can actually find out even online on the requirements for virtualization-based security. And you will notice that once you have that and you have VBS going, you should be able to have Hotpatch enabled. For server specifically, if you're looking at on-prem and trying to have hot patching on server, you need to have your Windows Server 2025, whether data center or standard, connected to Azure Arc, and then you will have to opt into the hot patching service that's available through the Azure Arc portal. So that is the requirement that you need to have.
Cool.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Vishal. And, speaking of Windows Server 22 and 25 Azure Edition, just a reminder that Hotpatch has been live on Windows Server 22 Azure Edition for more than 2 years now. So we've been issuing and producing, monthly Hotpatch updates, security updates for the past 2 years. And we've seen, great success with those. So encourage you all to give it a try on client and Server 25 ARC-enabled servers as well. All right. I'll move on to the next question. I created a dynamic group of my 24H2 devices and assigned it to the Hotpatch policy. I did this last month and have update 100 plus devices, but these devices are not showing up in the Hotpatch reporting yet. When can I expect them to be reported?
Yeah. So I can probably help with this one, Naveen. If this is the scenario that you created the policy last month, you added devices to the policy, and even after a month, you're not seeing devices into the report, this does look like an issue. And we would want our engineering crews to help resolve this issue for you. So I would encourage you to please create an ICM because we do require logs from your devices in order for us to troubleshoot better. So please use our support channel under Autopatch support. And then please create an ICM through that. If you go on Intune under support, you'll be able to find the link and all the details that are required to be populated in there. Please go ahead and fill that, and we will get our crew to take a look at the incident. The expectation is that the data should be refreshed every 4 hours. So this looks like a very awkward situation that your organization is falling into. We would like to really jump on this incident as soon as possible. So please go ahead, create an ICM, and we'll get the support to take a look at it.
David, did you want to add something?
Sure, I'd like to. It looks like we're getting near the end of time today. And so I just wanted to make a couple mentions that the team is publishing documentation at Microsoft Learn. So you simply search on Hotpatching there. And the other point is that give your feedback to these docs. We're absolutely the folks on the other side of that sort of firewall, looking at the comments and feedback to improve our documentation, answer your questions in a future AMA, as well as write blog posts and things like that to really make sure that we keep you fully in mind and supported for all the scenarios and ways you're going to try and bring Hotpatch into your enterprises.
Awesome. I think we're reaching the end of our session. Please keep posting your questions. The Q&A will stay open through 12 p.m. PST on Friday, and we'll keep answering as much as we can. Thank you so much, David, Vishal, and Surabhi. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much, everyone, for your great questions and your time today. Please continue providing us with feedback. It is extremely helpful. And thank you all again, and have a great rest of your day. Next up, share your feedback on what you need to accelerate adoption on aka.ms /windows/adoption feedback. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.